Are live. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Technical Defects. As usual, I am your host, Joe Ridgely. We have Dani Bailey as our new co-host, who is doing an excellent job. And our special guest this evening is Harrison Smith, who's a director, producer, writer. I'm sure I'm missing something else, Harrison.
I think you got it all.
How are you this evening?
I'm well, thank you. And thanks for having me on the show, both of you.
Oh, absolutely. Our pleasure. Dani, I'm going to start pulling up some pictures and you can take it away.
Awesome. Well, Harrison, I would just like to start by asking you kind of if you could just tell us a bit about yourself, how you got into directing, like when did you start getting into filmmaking in general?
Sure. Well, I mean, it goes back to, I've said many times that Jaws is the movie that made me want to make movies. So I saw Jaws when I was a boy. I was 8 years old, and I saw it with my mom, and I remember it was the first time ever seeing a movie that I saw people, laughing, screaming, and then at the end, they stood up and they applauded. And that made an impression on me. So I remember leaving the theater with my mom, and my mom always told me this story. She said, you walked out, and when we got to the car, you said, Mom, I'm going to make movies one day. And I kind of got on that track ever since, and Jaws changed the way that I looked at movies. Everything was different. And so by the time I was nine or 10 years old, my uncle got me a silent Super 8mm camera, a Kodak, and I started making movies on that. And I cut the film with scissors and spliced with Scotch tape, and started making comedy movies, dressing my brother up in our mother's house coat. And he was kind of like this ridiculous superhero. And I got all my friends involved, and I also found out very quickly that girls like a guy with a camera. So that was always a great conversation piece. And all through middle school and high school, I made movies, and I wrote my friends to do these, ridiculous things like being tied to the hoods of cars and ridiculous stunts and whatever it may be. But I got them to do it. And I ended up getting a local cable TV show when I was 16, where I aired my stuff on this show. And my friends, got to be part of it, and to this day, they'll even say to me, like, I can't believe you got us to do the stuff you got us to do. And it went from there. So, by the time The Fields came along, I had an independent financier who came to me and said, listen, I want to make a movie. I hear you're the guy to do it. What do you got? So I offered up a couple scripts. Most of them were pretty expensive. And then a buddy of mine said, well, what about your cornfield script about when you were a boy? And I said, I'll try that. So I gave it to the financier, and he said, I really like this. And his son, who became a producer on it and an excellent said, yeah, I believe in this. And that's where it went. So we made The Fields. I did not direct The Fields. I wrote and produced The Fields. And it went from there.
That is so awesome. I mean, I bet you had, oh my gosh, to come so far. And you're from Pennsylvania originally, right?
Yes, that's right.
That is so awesome. So can you tell us a little bit about Camp Dread? I don't know if Joe can pull up a photo of Camp Dread.
Sure. Camp Dread, it was one of those things where I was being interviewed by Fangoria magazine on a set of 6 Degrees of Hell. And I did not direct 6 Degrees of Hell. I wrote and I produced it, but Joe Raffa was the director of that. And this interviewer said, well, what do you got coming up next? And I said, I have this 80s slasher kind of summer camp movie I'd really love to do, but the only way I do it is if I can get Felissa Rose because of Sleepaway Camp. And I said, I need her to be in it. I want her to be a counselor in this movie. There she is. And the guy says to me, he goes, oh, I know Felissa Rose. I'm like, oh, you do? He goes, yeah, you have a phone number? And I'm like, no, I don't want her phone number, but if you really know her, could you drop her a line and maybe hook up a conference call with us? Look, you do things professionally. You just don't cold call anyone because they think you're nuts, or you're just a rabid fan or something like that. I'm not a stalker. I'm not any of those things. So he set up the call. Felissa and I hit it off instantaneously. And I sent her the script. She loved it. And Felissa was friends with Dan Harris. And it was Felissa who came back and said, well, what about Danielle in the movie as the sheriff? So I ran it by Danielle. She loved the idea. She hadn't played a cop before. And so Danielle came on board, and then we got Eric Roberts to play Julian. And it was my directorial debut. We shot it in the Poconos, and we shot it at a real summer camp. So the crew stayed most of the time on the camp, which was great. We would actually, in the morning, we would actually announce like, "Good morning, campers," to wake everybody up. So it was a lot of fun. And Eric came to set. I mean, he came to the Poconos, so did Danielle. Both of them extreme sweethearts to work with. Eric was kind of like the set prankster, and when a star is really missed and liked on set and they leave, and a couple of days later the crew's going, "Really missed Eric," like, "Wish Eric was here." Like they missed him. And Eric would tell such great stories about his career, the different films that he had made, and The Dark Knight and everything. So you learn a lot from everybody as well. And it was a very relaxed atmosphere. We had a lot of fun. The young cast that is in this, Joe Raffa, Nicole Sinaglia, so many of these people. I just loved working with them. And I was very blessed with an excellent director of photography, Charlie Anderson, who made a low-budget film look like a nice, expensive one. I mean, I always said Charlie could film a rock on the sidewalk and it would look like a Kubrick film. So he's that good. So, and Camp Dread also owes a lot to Tom Holland, who I've always been a fan of. Tom Holland. One of my favorite movies of all time is Fright Night in 1985. And I grew up loving Psycho 2. So what I did was I kind of patterned Camp Dread a little bit on that layered plot of not being what you think it's going to be. So like I was talking to you before the broadcast, the ending of Camp Dread owes a lot to Psycho 2. And I can't say enough great things about Tom Holland. I just think he's a gifted writer and a wonderful director. And he's also a very kind man. So we get along, we're Twitter buddies. I want to work with him hopefully one day. And just very lucky to have these kind of people in my life as a professional filmmaker.
I would be first in line to see that. You and Tom Holland, that would be, oh my gosh, that would be incredible.
Love it. I would love it.
Well, Harrison, part of the fun things or one of the fun things we do on the show is we actually pull up people's comments that are watching. And Sam Munster was saying what an amazing cast in that movie. And what else we got? Mike Tackett has a very long one. It goes without saying that George A. Romero was very influential in your work. Do you think you would have chosen the career path that you had you never come across his work?
Wow, I'll tell you what, that is such a great question on many levels, because Mike, you're absolutely right. I grew up reading Fangoria magazine. I mean, in the 80s, you didn't have the internet. You didn't have all this endless wealth of information. So when Fangoria published, like, you grabbed that issue and you read the living hell out of it. I mean, it was more than just looking at the pictures. I would read so much, and they would do such great pieces on George Romero and Carpenter and Alan Ormsby and all these people, Frank Henenlotter. And I read about them, and I devoured everything that I could. And George, I always watched how these directors like George and John, how they ran their sets and their theory behind filmmaking, and how they surrounded themselves with really good people. And the fact was that, you find this good crew, you utilize a great cast, and you stay with them, you hang on to them for life as long as you can. And so that is a great question. So the answer is, while I didn't have the influence that George Romero did, such as, in the zombie genre, which George really is the father of the modern zombie movie. I mean, The Walking Dead owes everything to George Romero, everything. And for me, it was watching how George ran a set. It was reading and listening to George's words of how you work with these people, and the repartee he had with Stephen King on Creepshow and all of that. And, like, working with people that worked with George, like Adrienne Barbeau and all these other folks who all said the same thing. What a nice man, treated his cast and his crew with respect. And that's what I always have patterned myself on. I'm a firm believer that if you have to say you're in charge, then you're not. So you don't walk onto a set going, well, I'm the director and you must listen to me. You let them know you're the director by showing them through action that you're in charge. And you don't have to ever say you're in charge. You treat people nicely. When people arrive on my set every morning, I shake everyone's hand. I say good morning to everyone. And at the end of the night, if it's the last person cleaning up, I shake their hand and thank them for a job well done for the day. And I am not above, as the one time on Zombie Killers, climbing into the porta toilet to fish the walkie-talkie out. Because if I'm the director, it's my show, I'll do it. I'll stick my hand in the crap and get that $150 walkie. So, you know, it's you set an example. That's it. If people see that you're doing that, well, then they'll listen. And you know, a crew will say, you know what, you've come close to overtime. Get us a case of beer and we'll call it even. And it's not taking advantage of that, because I work to make sure my crews get off on time. If we run close to overtime, it's usually because there's been a weather problem or something out of my control. It's not because I need to do 150 opening a door and wasting everyone's time. I shoot lean and I shoot fast, and I do that also out of respect to my crew, who are working their butts off every single day to make things happen. So it's mutual respect. And I learned all of that, back to Mike's original question, I learned all that by reading these interviews with these great directors who came up the ranks with no money and knew that you have to make up for the lacking through creative storytelling, and that comes through a crew that's behind you to allow you to tell these stories creatively.
Excellent. What else do we have down here? Evan Cornell.
I know Evan. I went to high school with Evan.
So proud to have you.
And there he is. Evan and I'll tell you, I remember Evan ever since I moved to Stroudsburg High School, middle school. And yeah, a lot of my friends will follow me. And they know. As a matter of fact, I wrote a short story in 7th grade, I believe it was, and I had Evan as a character. He got killed by a monster in 7th grade.
That's awesome.
That is awesome. Let's see, what else we got going on down here? Got lots of love shown for you, Sam Munster.
Thank
and
you.
Of course, Kelly has joined us. She's showing the love. And
thank you.
Excellent, excellent. Dani, what else you got going on?
Before we get to Death House, which I'm sure everybody is just so excited to talk about Death House, I did want to talk about Garlic and Gunpowder if we can. If you could just kind of tell us what that's about and what it was like working with Felissa on that set.
Well, I got to always say, Felissa is like my sister, partner, best friend. I mean, I just can't say enough great things about her. And it's one of those stories in this day and age of Me Too. There's no romantic involvement with Felissa and I. We have never done anything like that. Like, you know, like you have to say that almost because people think, oh, how could people be so close? Felissa is the sister I truly never had. And I adore her. And she's so talented. She's also another one. People will tell you on set, one of the nicest people you'll ever have on set. Always positive attitude. Good morning. Hello. What can I do for you? That's how she is. And in fact, when she arrives on set, the crew gets all excited. They'll start doing walkie-talkies. Felissa's on set. Felissa's on set. It's really cool. She is fantastic in this movie. She plays a character totally unlike anything she's ever played before. She plays Ma, who is this drug-dealing kind of low-grade gangster. And Ma has this plan to rip off the world's or the town's wealthiest people. Everybody thinks the world is coming to an end in Garlic and Gunpowder, that a comet is going to hit the earth. And so these rich people have all put all their valuables and cash and jewels into these convoy trucks. And Felissa wants to get them hijacked. And there are like 3 different groups that want these trucks. So it's very much like a Mad World meets Blazing Saddles. And Felissa is 1,000 politically incorrect in this movie. And I mean, you said, Dani, you watched the preview, didn't even know it was her because we put her in this like 250-pound fat suit. So she plays totally against type in this. And I laugh like hell at her even when I watch it every time. She nailed it. She is Ma.
Yeah, I had to look it up to even see who it was. I was watching the trailer. Who is that? I don't know who that is. Was Melissa? No way. I went back and watched it like 2 more times.
Yeah. Wait till you see her in the movie. You're gonna love her. And Judy Tenuta, Dean McDermott, Tori Spelling's husband. Dean McDermott is a scream. Him and Marty Cove in this is 2 idiot federal agents. Oh my God, are they dumbasses in this movie? And they almost steal the whole movie. And James Duvall, I mean, what a pleasure to work with. I mean, I could sit here and go on because it's so nice to have such positive experiences with your cast and your crew. I could go on all day just thanking everybody for just being such nice people and easy to work with.
That is so incredible. Do you see more comedy in your future as far as directing goes?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I've got a major one developing now with Paramount Pictures that I'm very excited about.
Can't wait.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an 80s teen comedy. Yeah, I'm excited.
Awesome. Well, I can't wait to talk about Death House. Oh my gosh. I know it's probably the most anticipated film of the year. Definitely the cast alone is blowing people's minds. I mean, you just don't expect how many people really are in this film. I mean, you kind of have to do double take. Right. No, really? No way. So I definitely want to hear about how you got a hold of the script in the first place. How did you come into it?
Well, first of all, why don't you tell everybody watching you got to see it?
I did. I am so incredible. I'm gonna have so many people hate me now after this interview. I got to see it today, and it was so much more amazing than I could have imagined. I mean, it really was. There's no words. I mean, I kind of came into it with an idea of what I thought it was going to be, and every 2 minutes of the movie, I was like, wow. You know, I was not expecting it. I wasn't expecting the thought. You know, it provokes thoughts. You know, as you're watching it, it's not your typical slasher movie where it's just gore. It really makes you think. Every scene makes you think. And I can't say enough good things about it. I mean, it's so, for everybody who's watching right now who has it pre-ordered, it is so worth the wait. You're going to absolutely love it.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Well, you had asked me how I came to this project. It was brought to me by Mike Eisenstadt, who I was out screening The Zombie Killers with Billy Zane and Dee Wallace in Los Angeles. And Mike Eisenstadt, who represents Dee Wallace, came up to me and he brought 2 guys with him, 2 producers, Rick Finkelstein and a gentleman named Steve Chase. And they are with Defects. And they introduced me to them. And Mike said, we have this movie called Death House that Gunnar Hansen wrote. And I knew who Gunnar was, of course. I mean, he's a legend. So I was like, wow, Gunnar Hansen, okay. And they wanted to know if I'd be interested in directing and possibly doing a polish, a rewrite. And I said, sure. So I met with Rick and Steve, and they were really nice guys and very excited about this. Rick said, I'm getting this movie made. So it's like, okay. So I met Mike the next day in Los Angeles. We had a lunch together. And Mike went over the script, gave me the one script, and then he said, there's another one out there. There's an internet urban legend or rumor that Gunnar left Death House, that he was not happy. That is not true. What happened was Gunnar wrote the original script. It went around town for a couple years. They couldn't really get any interest in it, and Gunnar said why. He said, as you and I were talking before this interview, he said that, you know, he felt that his story was too slow and the dialogue was not good. And that's Gunnar's own words. So they did bring somebody in to do a rewrite. And when I read the rewrite on the plane, I mean, I read Gunnar's and I saw exactly what he was talking about, but his was very thought-provoking. And that's what Gunnar wanted. Gunnar wanted art, and he wanted something for the fans. That's what was so important to him. And he was very, very loyal to his fan base. So anyway, I read the rewrite on the plane, and the rewrite was just basically torture porn. I mean, that's all it was. I mean, I don't know about you, but when I'm running through an abandoned catacomb, I often stop for oral sex while somebody's trying to kill me. You know, like there was literally, I'm not kidding you, there was a scene like that. And they ended up, the guy, they cut his penis off and nailed this metal spike through his groin and then stuffed his penis down his throat and then pulled it. They put their hand into his belly and reached and pulled the penis out of his. I'm like, I guess, you know, I guess if that's what you're into, but I'm not making that. And I remember I just took that script when I got off the plane. I was in the airport and I threw it right in the garbage. Like it was like, we're not even touching that. And I text Gunnar and I said, just so you know, I read that rewrite and it went in the garbage. It's in some airport garbage can right now. So anyway, Gunnar was very upset with that. And I guess in an interview somewhere along the line, Gunnar expressed his displeasure with that script. But Gunnar never left the project. The reason why I say that is some guy said something. I was giving a lecture or at a convention, I was giving a panel, and somebody said, oh, don't listen to Harrison Smith. What nobody knows is Gunnar left his own project. It's like, no, dumbass, he didn't. Okay, so no, he didn't. And you're talking again, like most people on the internet, without any base of knowledge whatsoever. Gunnar wasn't happy with that draft. So he went back to the board. They looked for another writer. That's where I came into the project. Sat with Gunnar directly, face to face, over several times, and then we talked a lot by phone, and we hashed out with what there is now. And I brought everything to Gunnar for his blessing. So it wasn't like I just took his story and revamped it. And Gunnar had certain rules. He said, I really want to keep the idea of the concept of what is true good and evil, what's really good and evil. And I think you saw it today, Dani, so I think you'll see that we succeeded in that. Oh, and then, in addition, he had these 4 characters called the Four Horsemen. And he wanted them to remain because the Four Horsemen, like in the biblical, represent, you know, different forms of devastation to the human race. And so what I did is I just one-upped them, and I brought in a woman. Okay, so Lindsay Hartley plays Balthoria in the film, which is a play on Lady Bathory. Okay, and Gunnar was thrilled with that. What I did not know the whole time we were doing this is that Gunnar was dying, and he knew he had very little time left. And Gunnar was also doing a kind of a last kind of tour with his family. He made it very clear, and now in hindsight you realize, but at that time I thought, oh, he's just spending this going around and seeing his family. But what he was doing was he was going around to say goodbye. So he never let on. He never said a word about it. He never said, I'm sick. I don't have much time left. It was only in October that Rick called me. And he said, do you know Gunnar is dying? And I was like, no. I said, I haven't heard from him in a couple weeks. And he said, well, that's why. He said he's on his deathbed. And he had pancreatic cancer. So it was a very, very fast-moving cancer. And Gunnar's last words to Rick were, you know, I give this script my blessing. When I die, whatever press comes out of it, use it. Be vultures. Film the movie on my grave if you have to. So very pragmatic and understood what he was facing. And then he was a gentleman. He was just such a kind man. And it's a shame that the horror world lost him because he was such a good man.
Well, you did so much justice by him. I mean, I think anybody who sees that will say that, you know, over and over again. I mean, it was so much more incredible than I could have ever imagined as a fan. I mean, it really is totally mind-blowing what you did with this.
Thank you. You got to see his cameo, right? He's on the tube that Debbie Rochon is kept in.
I had no idea that he was in it at all. I had no clue. Yeah. So when I saw that, I just, oh my gosh, made my heart stop. It really did. And I think it's going to have that effect on a lot of horror fans when they're watching
his last movie.
It's going to really take a lot of people back. I really know that.
Got a couple more comments here, guys, if I could, please. Jason says, what's up, guys? Hey, Harrison. And we've got Tom Burke. Hey, everyone. Thanks for joining us, Tom.
Hi, Tom.
And I'm going to pull up some pictures.
Okay.
All right.
Oh yeah.
That scene.
The creatures.
So creepy. Oh.
Yeah, that's a standout. Everybody who sees the movie goes, "What the hell were those things?"
Whew.
So they were inspired by. Have you ever heard it's a total bullshit story, but have you ever heard of the Russian sleep deprivation experiments under Stalin?
Yeah.
Maybe they did do something. They didn't do this, but there was a story about these men that were turned into these like wraith-like creatures through these experiments. And I read the story and I saw somebody, they did like a drawing, or it was some kind of Photoshop, whatever it was, but it was really good. It was a creepy looking image. And I thought, well, why don't we try to incorporate that in here? So that's what we did. And that's where the creatures come from. That's that they were inspired by that story. And just so you know, they're not puppets and they're not CGI. Those are really skinny actors who stripped nude and had the latex outfits vacuum sealed to their bodies. So they got this stuff applied to them, and then Roy Kaniram from Soda Effects stuck like a vacuum cleaner tube in them and then sucked all the air out of them to almost like a vacuum seal. That's what it was. They vacuum sealed the latex to form fit their bodies. So when you see like their ribs and stuff, those are the actors' ribs.
That just made it more creepy.
Yeah.
Oh my
Pretty
god.
cool. Yeah. No CGI, no puppetry. Those are people in genuine monster suits.
Oh my gosh. Well, thinking back to
And
filming.
there's no zipper. There's no zipper in them because we didn't want that. I remembered reading how they made Alien. And I remember that Ridley Scott was so determined to make sure that they had a monster that nobody could see the zipper going up the back. And that made an impression on me, even back in 1979 when I read, again, in Fangoria and Starlog, how they did this. So you take what you can from those interviews. So with these monsters, I told Roy, I want no sign of anything where people can say, oh, I can see the zipper. So they were vacuum sealed into these. There's no seam on these outfits. Like when we were done, they had to peel these costumes off.
Oh my gosh. That is incredible. It definitely, to me, was one of the creepiest scenes of the, oh my gosh. And the reaction from Dee Wallace, you know, and it just, their reactions were, they looked genuine, which now it makes total sense. It probably was very genuine. Oh,
yeah.
Probably terrified.
God bless those actors, and they froze their butts off making that scene because it was cold in there. And they're naked, and those outfits do not hold heat. So we had warming tents for them to go over in between takes just to warm up a little bit because they could get hypothermia.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
Not bad for a little low-budget movie.
Yeah, you does not come across that way at all. I can tell you that right now. I mean, like I said, it was just scene after scene after scene. I just was blown away. That whole, there's no words. I am so excited to get my copy. I'm so excited. Looking back on it, is there a scene that sticks out for you, or you were just probably, I don't know, one that was most memorable or was the most difficult to film?
A lot of stuff stuck out to me. One of the coolest things that I got to do was during lunch when we were shooting in Los Angeles. I got to spend 2 days with Sid Haig and just him at lunch and listen to him. I remember, you know, I sat with him and like, Sid, just tell everything. And he's like, what do you want to know? And I just said, you have 50 years in this industry. I mean, he's seen, you know, how horror has changed from basically the 70s through the 80s, how Carpenter changed things. I mean, going all the way through the slasher movies, working with Rob Zombie, Roger Corman. I mean, Sid's seen it all. So that was a real standout for me and something really special, I would say. So I was very blessed to have that. And also to talk with Michael Berryman, another one who's, I mean, Michael Berryman's another one. You could go cross country with him, and I could just listen to him talk the entire trip. That's how fascinating. And Bill Moseley always comes across as he's that cool college professor. Like, he could have been just such a great college professor, and very hip and very funny. Watching Bill and Kane and Michael together on set, they did like a Three Stooges hello, hello, hello. And I turned to the cameraman and I said, we're seeing something pretty cool here. So working with all of these people, Tony Todd, again, Tony, who I always feel is, you know, an Oscar waiting to happen because he really needs one. He really does. And to see how kind they all were. And you know what? They all said, every single one of them said this. They were all there for Gunnar. They were doing this for Gunnar. And that shows the camaraderie in this genre. I mean, horror gets a bad rap. Oh, you know, horror movies, that's why these kids are the way they are. And look, let's face it, ever since horror, it's always been the redheaded stepchild of film. So all these people and the way that they gathered together and they united, all for a cause in respect to their friend. And that says a lot about somebody. It really does.
Oh, it's such a tight community. Even the fans, when they talk to the fans, you know, it's one of those, you know, genres where there is so much support and people do get so excited, you know, about these upcoming projects. And to see all of these people together, I mean, like you said, Sid's wisdom is just, you cannot put it into words. And same with Bill. I mean, his intelligence is just off the charts just from the interviews. Yeah. He is just, it's incredible to have those people together. It really is.
We wanted to build off, some people had a great idea for Death House, for the Five Evils. We wanted to build off an idea that he had where Death House is actually powered by the energy that the Five Evils give off. The evil, that evil is actually an energy, a force in the universe. And we wanted to really build on that, but as we got deeper into the film and you know, it was so layered as it was, I kind of felt that needed to go by the wayside, but it's something I would love to come back and explore in the sequels, because it was so cool that Bill brought that to the table. And like I said, another one that you just feel very gifted to have had, you know, to work with.
I was going to bring that up. I saw on IMDb the Dawn of Five Evils, which got me ridiculously excited because, you know, this one alone was so incredible. And I was wondering what you can say about that.
Well, what I can say is no script exists for it yet. I'm not a fan of the title, but it is considered the unofficial prequel to Death House, where we would look into the origin stories of the Five Evils. We kind of hint toward that a little bit in Death House itself. We don't give a lot of backstory on the Five Evils, but we do hint of where they came from and their backgrounds, especially when Adrienne Barbeau and the computer are telling us, you know, their file status and things like that. But Death House 2 is written, and its subtitle, it's called Death House 2: The Farm. And I think it's far more brutal and thought-provoking than the original film.
Oh my gosh, I am so excited. I'm like, the first one hasn't even made it to my house yet. I'm so excited.
So, Death House, that was limited release in theaters. How many theaters did that hit?
Yes. It had about 110, 120 theaters.
And I saw that Kane was at a couple of them, I believe, and he really brought in, packed the house, it looked like.
Oh, yeah. Kane's very proud of this movie, and you know, I let him see a screener of it not long after we came in with my cut. And Kane, if you know him, if you've met him, there's no bullshit with Kane. So if Kane doesn't like something, Kane's going to say it. And I let him see the cut, and about a week later, my phone lit up, and I was with a buddy of mine. I was at lunch, and I saw Kane Hodder come up on my phone, and I looked at him. I said, well, this is about Death House. I said, this is either going to be a really good conversation or a really bad one. So I don't know which one it's going to be. And I got on the phone, and he has that, I can't even do his voice. He has that deep voice. He's like, Harrison, it's Kane. I'm like, okay. I said, how are you? And he goes, I effing love this movie. He goes, you got to bring me back. I want to be in the sequel. I want to keep working with you. And I thought, that's the best rave I can get. So I was happy.
Well, I mean, he was talked to me a lot about it just when I was in Phoenix. I mean, which was so surreal for me to be sitting there and talking to him about Death House. It was just kind of just took me back the entire time. But
well, it's funny. It's funny when we were editing it, we had this editor he was probably about 25, 26. And he looks at me at one point in the editing process and he goes, Harrison, he goes, I got a question for you. He goes, how does Kane keep coming back? Like they do this to him and they do that to him and he keeps getting up and coming back. I said, well, you're a fan of Friday the 13th, aren't you? You said you love Jason Voorhees. He's like, yeah. I said, well, they shoot him, they drown him, they burn him, they chopped his head off, lightning strikes him and somehow reattaches his head. I don't know how that happens. They do all these things to him. They blew him up, right? And he keeps coming back. And I said, you never question that. And he goes, well, no. And I said, so when Kane wears a mask, you have questions. But when he doesn't wear a mask, I'm sorry, when Kane wears a mask, you don't have questions. When he wears a mask, when he doesn't wear a mask, you have questions. And he goes, I never thought of it that way. I said, why do you have to worry about that? For example, even with the new Halloween, I don't know, from what I hear, the reviews are great. I'm looking forward to it. Blumhouse is getting my money. However, I really hope there is no scene in that movie that explains how Michael can keep sitting up after being shot. Okay? We don't need it. Donald Pleasance said it best in 1978. He's evil. That's it. No other explanation is needed. Do we need an explanation why the shark attacks people in Jaws? Why does it come to Amity? Do we need all this explanation? The shark just came and it ate people and they killed it. That's the movie. We don't need an explanation that the shark was following some whale pod or got caught in the chain. We don't need that. We don't need all this exposition backstory. The scary thing about Michael Myers, and which I'm really glad from what it appears that I've seen from the previews of Halloween, is they got rid of the subplot of Halloween 2 in 1981 that Michael and Laurie are brother and sister. Tommy Lee Wallace, who worked on the film, told me that was never supposed to be part of the plot, ever. Okay? The scary thing about Michael Myers is that he is random. He's like a tornado. He touches down in Haddonfield. He may hit your neighbor's house and not yours, or vice versa. But there's no reason or logic why Michael does what he does. Why did he fixate on Laurie? We don't know. Maybe Blum will give us an answer in this, but I hope it's not too detailed of an answer because you know what? Sometimes bad shit just happens. And that's the way that it is. And that's what was so scary about Halloween. This quiet little town, and Donald Pleasance said it best. Death has come to your little town, Sheriff. That's all we need to know. And right there, you have a movie.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with that more. It even goes to say in some like monster type horror movies when, you spend the entire movie being scared of this creature and then they finally show it at the end. Sometimes it would have been that much scarier if you would have never seen it at all. Just the whole getting it up to your imagination kind of a thing to figure out. Exactly. Yeah, that is incredible. What can we see upcoming for you in the future? I know you mentioned that you have another script that you're working on, and I've seen a couple of things on Twitter.
Yep. I just recently optioned the rights to a best-selling book called Spilled Milk, which is a true story, and to me is real horror. The story is by Cale Randis, a young girl who experienced sexual assault from her father. And for 8 years, she was sexually assaulted and abused. And the story is just dreadful. It's a horrible story, but it's not a story of victim. It's a story of triumph, is what it is. And she overcame. She successfully prosecuted her father. And the story focuses on her plight as a child all the way through young adulthood, where she had to face this monster down. And I said to her when I finished the script, I said, you know, Kelly, in a weird way, we kind of remade Nightmare on Elm Street, is what we did. The father is very much like Freddy Krueger. There is a scene in the script based in the book that I wrote one evening. It was like close to 10:30 at night, and I was writing it on my front porch. And I told her, I said, hands down, this is the most horrific thing I've ever written. Death House is a comedy compared to this. So we're hoping to get it out there. We have it in the hands of a couple A-list people, and I'm hoping that it'll get picked up. It's going to get made. Level it'll get made at, I don't know, because the material is dark. But I will say this here on your podcast. For everybody involved in the Me Too movement that has been distracted by Rose McGowan and all of this other stuff that goes on with the celebrities, there are real women out there who don't have the spotlight, who don't have a bully pulpit for multimedia, social media platforms, Instagram models, whatever you want to do, that are suffering out there, that need the help and the exposure of Me Too. They may not be celebrities. Kelly Randis was one of those people. So my challenge is to also say, and I'm not just doing this self-serving because I wrote the script, I don't care who directs this. I would love to direct this, but it could easily go into the hands of somebody else. The fact is, there are reasons why I chose to do the script, to help her. So if anybody in the Me Too movement is listening, you find Kelly Randis, K-L Randis, and Spilled Milk on social media. Find her on Twitter, find her on Facebook, and do your part to try to get this movie made.
That is so incredible. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much for taking that on. That is one of my very favorite things about you as just a fan, is that you never hold back, even following you on social media. You tell it like it is. And I think that is so important, especially for this generation, that we rely so heavily on social media. To have somebody who prompts us to think and to question is huge.
That's all I want. Look, I even hate to say, people follow me. Don't follow me. And you don't have to agree with what I say. What I'm saying is, we're in a world right now where we have people, hang on, I'm sorry, a pop-up just came up here on my laptop. There we go. I couldn't see it. We have this situation now where we have people that believe the earth is flat, okay? And we have people that believe that Katy Perry is John Benet Ramsey. There is no evidence of this at all, and everybody believes in these nebulous conspiracies. And there's no critical thinking going on. There's no evidence of anything that people are going, let me give some real thought. If you've seen the movie Idiocracy, that's what I worry about that we have. That's what I really do. I worry about it, and, look, it's not a political thing, whether you voted for Trump or didn't, whether you're a Hillary Clinton supporter or not. The fact is, we need to wake up to a lot of things that are going on, because while we're worried about Kylie Jenner and we're worried about Caitlyn transforming into a woman and all of this other stuff, they are passing crap through Congress that we have no idea what they're doing. And it's just like the book Animal Farm. And everybody thought it was going to be 1984. Read the book Animal Farm. That's where we're at right now. So my social media platform is, I talk about movies, I hawk Death House, I do those things. But also, I want people to look at some of these ridiculous headlines. I'll post stuff up. You've seen some of the stuff I posted. Do we really need another Chrissy, what is it, Teigen? Is that how we pronounce her last name? She's married to John Legend. Do we really need another Yahoo article on her breastfeeding? Do we really care about this? And if we do, why? Why do we care about what Kim Kardashian, Kylie, Kourtney, Khloe, whatever Kardashian we're talking about? I mean, they're kind of interchangeable. And here's the other thing that I want to say on social media. You have these Kardashians who have so much money, okay? And somebody said, oh, love horror. They love horror. You should get them to pitch Death House. None of them will pitch Death House unless you pay them. Not one of them will ask me for the screener, and if they like it, would they go out on their Instagram, on their social media, and say, I just saw Death House, and I loved it, and you should too. Does every horror fan realize if Kylie Jenner or Kourtney Kardashian or any of them just gave a thumbs up to Death House, you'd have the #1 horror film of the year because everybody would go and buy it. But they won't do it. Jenner and all of them, they won't do it unless you pay them. My answer is you have all this money. You have more money than the average American. How much more do you freaking need? Like, if I were Jeff Bezos, and, you know, to be fair, if I were Zuckerberg or any of them, maybe they contribute money and we just don't know it. Maybe they're great philanthropists and we just don't know it, which is good because you really shouldn't be broadcasting that you're doing good things. You don't go out and give a homeless person $50 and take a selfie of you doing it. Okay? You go out to help people and you don't care who knows. That's the whole point of being charitable. And but if I were Jeff Bezos and I had, what does he have, like $167 billion himself? I would be helping everybody I could every stinking day. I'd quit my job and just be like, what can I do to improve the human condition and leave something better than how I found it? And I know I would do that, but that's not how all people think. You know, I mean, you got $167 billion. He's what, 40 some years old? He couldn't spend it all if he wanted to, unless he wanted to bail out the national debt or something like that. But imagine the schools you could build. Imagine the education programs, hospitals, going in and actually rebuilding infrastructure. I keep hearing our president and our government talking about rebuilding the infrastructure. When the hell is that going to happen? When are we doing this? You know? So maybe we need a Zuckerberg and a Bezos who have billions and billions of dollars. You know, I could check right now and build 6 effing hospitals if I wanted to. Do we really need somebody tooling around in another Lamborghini? Yes, you're wealthy. We get it. Yes, we get it. You're building all kinds of things. You know, new Amazon factories. I get it. So as a filmmaker, you know, with limited power, I'm not even John Carter, you know, in the horror world. But what I am saying is, do something that impacts. So that's why I did Spill. You know, it's not a horror movie, but it is. I did it to help someone and to help others. Look, if one person that movie and says, I'm going to go get help, I can do this. If Kelly could do it, I can do it and end this cycle of abuse. He did something good, right? Did something good came out of it.
Absolutely.
It's not about lining my pockets. I have no plans of getting rich off of Silk. And, you know, if it's going to help somebody to stop that abuse and put somebody behind bars, so there you go, Me Too. Look up K.L. Randis.
And that is so incredible, too. And taking it even back to Death House, this horror movie that you did, I really hope when people watch it, they see the contrast or the comparison to what is going on in our world, and they can, you know, read a little bit deeper into it, because you did leave so much there, so much food for thought in that movie, which is incredible of you, and that shows your talent. You can take a horror movie and then put that underneath that thought, you know, the food for thought.
It wasn't an easy decision to do, because, you know, horror fans are tough, because they'll bitch and bitch and bitch that they want something new, and then you give them something new, and then they bitch because you gave them something new, because it's not like this. Well, you know, geez, I was expecting it to be like Saw. No, it's not Saw. Saw is Saw. You know, Friday the 13th is Friday the 13th. If I wanted to make Friday the 13th, then I'd effing make Friday the 13th. You know, so we gave something different. We wanted people to walk away from it going, I never thought about that. Like, somebody said to me in one screening, they said, you know, oh, at the end, the 5 evils, they really weren't all that scary. I said, if you don't think they're scary, then you didn't watch the movie. Because no, they're not Pinhead. They're not the Cenobites. And a shout out to Abby Lawrence, who I can't wait to meet when I go out to California. The Cenobites were, you know, the gooey, drippy monsters. That's a ripoff. It's already been done. Clive Barker did it. It's done. So why am I going to go back to that? No, the real evil is that if you take them out of those restraining suits that they're in and put them out on the street, you never know who the hell they are. Right? And they're doing all these awful things. That's real evil. In the Holocaust, it wasn't these giant hulking mutant guards that were killing people. Yes, they had guards and the Nazis were bad, but it was the Nazi administrators, the doctors, the lawyers who put it all together, the teachers, the educators who taught that people could be exterminated systematically because they weren't human. That's scary shit. When you read textbooks that read, and I've seen these textbooks at the Holocaust Museum, you know, where John has 5 apples, a Jew steals 3. That's evil, okay? And that comes under the guise of legitimacy. Evil isn't always in a Michael Myers mask or a Jason mask, okay? Evil comes in as the person sitting next to you on the train. Evil is the person who is a politician who's enacting, you know, God knows what they're putting into place, you know? So for me, evil takes on, and that's what Death House is about. Remember at the end when Bill Moseley says people like Dr. Fletcher think they're doing good. They're actually doing evil, but it's disguised as good. That's worse than evil just being evil.
Well, even Dee Wallace's comment, oh my gosh, I was not expecting that, when she starts talking about the Holocaust and she starts talking about the people who turn their heads away from all of it. Then I was
yes,
you know, wow, it completely took me back. I mean, it was incredible.
And Dee plays totally against type in this movie. I mean, she is so cold. And we based her as a tribute. Her name is Dr. Fletcher for Louise Fletcher, who played Nurse Ratched in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Because Nurse Ratched, in my opinion, is one of the worst on-screen villains ever. I have never met Louise Fletcher. I am sure she is a very sweet woman. I would never trust her in a heartbeat because of that role. She is always going to be Nurse Ratched to me.
Oh, absolutely. And we got a couple of comments on here that I was kind of flashing, but I do want to get to them because that is part of the show, and people love seeing their names up on here. And well, first, Sam was saying, word Harrison, absolutely, when you were discussing earlier about your future film. And Troy said, absolutely, we don't need another 20th Conjuring movie.
I would agree, Troy.
But I have a question for you, for an independent filmmaker. And I don't know if you actually get asked this often or how it actually affects you guys, but piracy is huge right now. And
yes,
some people think that it's a good thing for filmmakers because it gets it out there more, and some people think that it's taking money away from the filmmakers. Can you address that, please?
Sure. I'll tell you what, that's real easy. Can I go to your workplace and get a piece of your paycheck? It's that simple.
An excellent
You know,
answer. Probably the best
you go to
answer
work
I've
and
heard.
I'll come in and I'll just take 20% of your paycheck, please, okay? Because I want it. Death House, for example, the DVD is being designed to be a collector's item. There will be an autograph section inside the DVD artwork for you to take the DVD to the fans, to the conventions. The fans can take them and get them autographed. Because here's what I did. Before I signed on to Death House, I went to over 12 horror conventions. Now, I never went to them before. I love horror. It's my career. But I didn't go to the cons. So I went to the cons, and I didn't walk around saying I'm Harrison Smith or anything like that. Not that anybody would know me anyway. But I listened. I would stand by Kane's table long before Kane ever met me. And I'd stand by Kane's table and Tony's table, and I listened. And the number one thing you heard from fans were always, oh my God, I was 14 when I saw you in this. And I was this, and I was there when this happened. And when you made that, I can still remember. It's all about memory and nostalgia. And then almost invariably, the next thing that comes is, and I brought my kids to this convention to meet you. And the kids all say, oh my God, all my dad or my mom talks about is when they did this. It's a family thing. And these kids are growing up in an era that when Kane is gone and Bill and Michael and Sid and everybody's gone, Gunner's already gone, and Toby Hooper's gone, George is gone, Wes Craven's gone. When these people are gone, who are you going to go see at these cons? Tell me somebody right now, what, zombie number 46 from The Walking Dead, you're going to go pay $50 for their signature? Who are these legends? Where are the future Barbara Cramptons? Where are the future Dee Wallaces, Adrienne Barbeaus? You know, it's an honor to come see these people because these conventions to me are far different than just going and buying some merchandise. You get to connect with a memory. You get to connect with something that was a defining moment in your life. And that's what we have with Death House. You pirate Death House, I can't stop that from going on. We'll do our best. However, we know that it'll get pirated, but you will never get the experience of what this movie is about. It doesn't belong sitting on a flash drive or a hard drive and played on a laptop or a cell phone. It belongs being shown on a nice big wide screen with a bunch of people in the room all talking nostalgically about the first time they saw Friday the 13th, how they got the shit scared out of them by Robert Englund. That's what this movie was designed to do, and that was Gunner's legacy.
You could not have said that better. Oh my gosh, you couldn't have said it better. That is so true. Are you going to be at any upcoming cons? I know that I bug you about that all the time on Twitter.
Yeah, I right now I'm not high on the invite list. I don't know why. I always give a good panel. But, you know, so I don't have any cons coming up at this point. I'll go if they invite me. I'll go. You know, I have no problem with that. Because I'm kind of like the horror preacher. You know, I'm talking to people that this genre matters to them. You know, and I have friends, look, like when Evan just made a comment a while, you know, he's proud that I'm his friend, and I'm proud to have him because we grew up together. We have memories together. And yet I have some of my friends go, I can't believe you make these movies. You grew up to make these horrible movies. It's like, don't disparage the entire genre because you don't watch them. You don't understand. Trust me, I think Disney is far more detrimental than any horror movie.
True. Absolutely true.
And if I may add something,
well, I keep bombarding Days of the Dead Chicago with emails telling them to send out an invite. I think I do one a week. I'm like, don't forget.
I'll never force myself on them. If they want me, they know where to find me.
What I wanted to add to when you said watching this movie on a computer doesn't do it any justice. I had the privilege of watching this movie on my flat screen TV with the surround sound blaring, and let me tell you, holy shit. Phenomenal. And you're right, you would be missing that experience. I just can't compliment it enough, to be honest with you. And I'm not a horror guy. I'm not a horror genre guy. Dani is totally horror genre, and you know, occasional kind of, but this was just like, yeah, give me part 2, please.
Sure, gladly. If anybody wants to finance it, give me a ring.
I was telling Harrison earlier that, you know, that's how I originally found out who he was. I was walking through, I live in Alaska, so we still had a Blockbuster up until about like 2 months ago, because that's how, you know, far in the past we still are up here. But I was walking through Blockbuster and I picked up Camp Dread. And I was looking at it and I was like, they made another sleepaway camp? I didn't know about this. And so I got it and I brought it home and I watched it once. And I just obsessed over it. And I watched it about 6 more times and I wouldn't take it back. So I ended up paying like a $30 fee. And then I ended up buying it from them when they went out of business. So I was like, I told you I would own this movie one day. But I looked up Harrison and I found, you know, then I realized he was the director for Death House, and it all kind of came together and I was, you know, blown away. But I mean, it really is like this genre, like it's the camaraderie, and you are one of the greatest directors of this I mean, that's working out right now. I mean, every single movie you've done has just shown how you can take something and put this twist on it that no one is expecting, and you're completely different. You have just enough of, you know, the traditional horror elements in all of your films, and then you add this twist that makes it so much different and unique and thought-provoking. And I can't say enough about how you direct, and I'm so excited.
I owe all of that to John Carpenter, George Romero, Tommy Lee Wallace, all the greats, Wes Craven. They paved the way, and they gave me so many great memories. I told Amanda Wiss that when I first met her. I did a spinoff, a virtual reality spinoff for Samsung called 360 Degrees of Hell, which was a spinoff of 6 Degrees. And I got to work with Amanda. And I told Amanda about a story about one night when I was in high school, the summer after I graduated. I showed a group of my friends in Nightmare on Elm Street and how her death scene traumatized several of the girls in the room. And it's good to let actors know that, you know, like, you are a part of people's memories. This is more than you just made a movie. You help define their childhood years, that you give them memories. that's what I wanted with Death House.
You got it. I mean, oh my gosh, I can't say enough about it. And like I said, to everybody who's watching this right now, for those of you who have pre-ordered it, it is so worth the wait. I am so excited to get the box. I'm going to take it to every convention that I go to next year. I'm going to have everyone sign it. And for those of you who haven't ordered it, get on it, because it's so incredible. I mean, order it, because I mean, it's so worth every dime, and it's going to completely blow your mind when you get it. And it really will.
Well, you got to see that great little cameo after the credits.
Yes. Yes, stay after the credits.
It's a good one.
Watch
after the credits.
Because it's amazing. I mean, I laughed so hard.
It's a good cameo. It's a real fun, and it's a great cameo, and it's the real one.
Oh my god! That was just like I was saying earlier. That is one of my favorite things about Death House, and horror in general. Is you're watching it, and it's like every scene you're like, no way, they're in this movie. No way, they're in this movie. It's just every single scene you see somebody that you weren't expecting or that you didn't know was in the film, and it keeps you so excited. And I love movies like that. That every single scene, there's no falling asleep. I mean, every single scene that comes up, you're blown away by something that they say, or that's an homage to another film, or you see an actor that you really adore that you haven't seen in a while. It's so amazing. The whole experience of the movie. It's not just an incredible script and incredible acting. I mean, the whole feeling that you get when you're watching it. It's just, I couldn't say it. It's my new favorite film of all time, and that's saying something.
Well, I hope Jason Blum sees that one day and thinks the same and throws me a flick.
Absolutely.
Well, we are hitting the hour mark, and our show is usually an hour long. Granted, we could probably go on for another hour or two. I mean, I'm geeking out right now. And again, I'm not a horror guy, and the cameos, the Easter eggs, the whole 9 yards with this film, it blew my mind.
The music is amazing. Every time the song comes on, are we playing that right now? No way. That was, oh my gosh. I could go on for an hour alone on just the music in the film. I mean, as a music fan, it was just, I'm like, oh, it was amazing. I loved it.
Good. That's what we wanted. We wanted this to be a roller coaster ride through the funhouse.
Oh my gosh. You got it. You absolutely nailed it.
All right. So, Harrison, where can we find you on social media, and where can we find the movie on social media?
Sure. Well, you can follow me or just check out my timeline on Twitter. I'm Harrison Smith 85 on Twitter. And you can go right to Amazon. Just type in Death House DVD. Boom, it comes right up. And you can pre-order now. They are also doing the VOD release November 6th. So you're welcome to go to Amazon, order it right there. All our news is also posted. Our Death House Facebook, which I'm actually broadcasting from, is constantly updated thanks to our top-notch social media director, who I just can't say enough props about to this guy, who goes above and beyond. And so thank you, Jason, for all that you do. So yeah, I mean, that's the best way to find me is Twitter, because it gives me a chance to interact with people as well too, directly. And that's what's really nice. And what I love about Twitter, I don't know if you've noticed, Dani, but and Joe, if you get a chance on Twitter to look, there is this great community of people that have totally recreated Jaws. And they play the characters from Jaws. I'm telling you, man, some of the funniest damn people on Twitter. I love it. They play the characters straight, but they have this whole thing now where Len Peterson is turning Cable Junction into a casino, and the Taft Lounge has Peter Benchley's character, the Amity reporter, and he's always in there bumming drinks and has a tab a mile long, and they just got everything. And I love it. Select Woman Taft is on there, and all she says all the time is, I don't think that's funny. I don't think that's funny at all. I'm sorry. Like, she does that stuff. It's terrific. Great stuff. I keep trying to get the person who does Select Woman Taft to do a movie review, because her Select Woman Taft's movie reviews are so succinct in 140 characters, and they're dead on every time. So my props to Select Woman Taft. And yeah, they're just great people. So on Twitter, I get to interact with a lot of really cool people. One of them is Adrian Rowe, who did the first Scream to the Last series of books, which are like these definitive compendiums on the history of horror films. And he's fantastic with what he does. So, you know, give them a shout sometime to look into that, because this man is a wealth of knowledge in the genre, and also a very nice gentleman as well, too. So you get to meet a lot of nice people on Twitter, and I like to be able to interact there. So it's nice. They still haven't verified me on Twitter, which I think is amazing.
Well, thank you from a fan's perspective. Thank you for interacting the way you do. I can't say it enough. I mean, the first time that you retweeted something of mine, and I have it literally, I screenshotted it and saved it forever. I mean, I was so excited. I freaked out.
Boy, it took a lot to click to retweet for you, Dani. I'm not a Kardashian. I won't charge you for that retweet.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Because I was so, I dropped my phone. I was like, hey, I got on Facebook. I was like, Harrison Smith just talked to me on Facebook. I fangirled out everywhere. I mean, it's so cool getting to talk to someone like you. It's awesome. I mean, I fangirled bad.
You're welcome.
All right. And also everybody out there in internet world, internet land, however you guys refer to it now. God, I feel so old.
The void.
Don't forget to follow Technical Defects on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and there's some big changes coming up. So we may not be Technical Defects any longer. We may be doing something else. Stay tuned for that. I'm going to put Harrison on the spot right now, just because it's fun to put celebrities on the spot. Any last words, sir?
Usually I try to end the last words with anybody that's trying to break into this industry, and it's very simple. Do it. Don't talk about making movies. Don't watch movies all the time and, you know, quote unquote, review them. Get out there and make a movie. Even if it's on your iPhone and it's for $5, make the movie. Get out there and do it. The world has too many talkers. You know, we need people of action to actually do something. And that's how I think the film industry needs that as well, too. Harness your talent and make it work for you.
That is awesome. that was perfect.
Sincere.
Very much so. We're going to end the broadcast in one moment. If you could stick around for a few moments afterwards, I'd greatly appreciate it. Dani, do you have anything else to say?
Yeah, if you haven't pre-ordered Death House, go do it right now. If you haven't seen Camp Dread or Garlic and Gunpowder, make it happen. If you're a fan of Sleepaway Camp especially, go watch Camp Dread. The actors did an incredible job, and Harrison is one of, like I've said a million times over, he's one of the greatest directors working out right now. So follow him, watch what he posts and what's coming up. I mean, you will not be disappointed. And thank you so much again, Harrison, for being willing to do this. I mean, you made dreams come true just for me getting to speak with you. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. And thank you both for the exposure. We really appreciate it. I'm grateful. Thank you.
Our pleasure. And folks out there, join us again next week for another episode. We've got another exciting guest. And we're echoing all. It's a good time to end. Good night, everybody. Thank you for joining us.
Good night. Thank you.
And thank you for coming.